Hello and welcome to Tina's Joyful Kitchen. My name is Tina McDermott, and I am a speaker, weight loss coach, and the lazy inspirational chef. This is my love and my passion, and there's no place that I'd rather be than right here, right now, teaching you how you can find joy in the kitchen, even if you don't know how to cook or if you don't like to cook, so you can live a life that's full of health, vibrancy, and free from diets and free from disease and free from all of those things. And especially now during this holiday season, there's a lot of food that's going to be presented to us, not just during the holiday, but before and after and all that other fun stuff. So I'm going to teach you some really healthy recipes that you can cook for yourself, for your family, to take to parties, all of that. And it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right. Now, a little bit of housekeeping, and then I'll tell you what we're going to make. If the internet goes out, don't you worry your pretty little heads. We'll be right back. And every time I say that, nothing happens. Everything that I talk about today is not medical advice. I'm not a doctor. If you have questions after this, you chat with a doctor or a nurse, please. What else I want to tell you? Oh, I know. When we multitask, we literally experience less joy. And if you haven't already guessed, I'm all about the joy in life. So do me a favor, do yourself a favor, close out of your browsers, silence that cell phone, and be with me 100%. And I promise you will experience a ton of joy today. So if you're in to be with me 100%, go ahead and type I'm in that chat box. Go ahead and type I'm in that chat box. If you're in to be with me 100% and experience a ton of joy in our class today, go ahead and type I'm in the chat box. We got Ratasha, we got Caitlin, we got Kay Kemp with an F. We've got, I don't know your first names. If you want to change your name so I know what your first name is, there's 3 little dots, pull it down, change the name so I can call you by your first name. And if not, that's okay too. Life is good. Life is good. And we've got Thushari, but I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. That says that she's in. All right, let me tell you what we're going to make today. Today we're going to make, I'm going to start with a dessert. Low sugar, diabetic friendly cheesecake. You're like, cheesecake, healthy? Yeah, you're not meant to eat the whole thing. Okay. Then we're going to make this wonderful butternut squash casserole with pecan crunch instead of making that sweet potato casserole that's full of sugar and full of everything else. And this is out of this world, delicious. No one will know. No one will know. And then we're going to make green beans wrapped in prosciutto. Now, who here can roll their tongue and say prosciutto? If you can, and you're positive you can, I want you to take yourself off of mute, and I want to hear you say prosciutto. So who can say it? Who can roll their tongue? I'm going to give you 5 seconds. Ready?
Prosciutto.
Great job. Great job. Let's work on rolling that R just a little bit more. Prosciutto. I'm Italian. My parents are off the boat. I lived there for a long time. Life is awesome. So I love when people can just pronounce words and have fun with it. Butternut squash sounds good. Yes. And, you know, again, I don't get to see your beautiful faces. So I so love you and appreciate when you chat with me in that chat box or when I ask you to come off of mute and try to pronounce something. Oh my gosh, so much fun. So who has ever been to a restaurant and they know what kind of desserts they have and their favorite dessert is not available? They're out of their favorite dessert. Who's done that? Type a 1 in the chat. If you've gone to a restaurant and they did not have your favorite dessert, type a 1 in the chat. Type a 1 in the chat. Type a 1 in the chat that's ever happened to you. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm making the dessert first. Why? Because it takes the longest. And I've already made the cheesecake crust because there's a lot of process here. And I'm not going to be able to make the entire thing for you. So what I've already done is I've made the crust. Now, in the past, I know you probably have a graham cracker crust, which is just delicious. And the problem is that it's full of gluten and hydrogenated fats that are going to not destroy your health, but they're bad for your health. They clog your arteries and so many more things. So what's in here is almond flour, butter, monk fruit. Let me show you monk fruit. I have it over here. Monk fruit is a sweetener made from a fruit, not in a laboratory, like the artificial sugars. And I always like to bake with confectioner's sugar monk fruit. I assure you, I have made this cheesecake for my entire family, and no one knew that I used monk fruit. I want you to know that. No one knew. And I had raving reviews. A little pinch of sea salt in here too. And I smashed it all down and I baked it for about 15 minutes at 325 in my convection oven. Who here cooks in convection? And who here cooks in regular gas? You use monk fruit, good for you. You convection oven or regular oven? I'm trying to get this done. So, and then I'll tell you what's in here in just a minute, okay? Caitlin, can you actually hear me with this blender on? Probably not, right?
Yeah, I can. You're good.
Oh, good. So I can chat while I'm doing this. It's not too noisy.
No, go right ahead.
Okay, good. So what I'm doing here, now it's going to be noisy because I'm making a lot of noise here. Let me turn that low for a second. What I'm doing here is I've got a couple of blocks of cream cheese. I got a couple of blocks of cream cheese. By the way, I halved the recipe. I cut the recipe in half because I wanted to do a couple of small cheesecakes as opposed to, you know, making 5 huge cheesecakes. So you're welcome to always take a recipe and cut it in half. Okay? So I've got cream cheese and monk fruit confectioner's sugar in this bowl. And what you want to do is whip this up, the sugar and the cream cheese all by itself for just a few minutes until it's incorporated and it's on the creamy side. Feel free to do what I'm doing, turn it off and just push the ingredients down. I love these little small silicone spatulas. I try to go back to the large ones and I just can't. So this is what it looks like so far. I don't, you know, you probably can't see that because it's white on white, but none to worry. You will see it in just a few moments. I have a few more moments here and then I'm going to put the eggs in here. Okay. Regular oven, air fryer. I have an Emerald Lagasse air fryer / toaster / baker / rotisserie oven right back there. And that's what I cooked this in. If you're using, because it's convection, you have to go 25 degrees less. How did I learn that? Because I burned some crusts in the past. I'll show you some more tricks that I do too with that. All right, this is nice and creamy. If you want to see what the creamy looks like, there it is. And now I'm going to put some eggs in there. My eggs have sat out for a couple of hours. You want room temperature eggs. Does anybody know why we want room temperature eggs? Does anybody know why we want room temperature eggs? Now, what I should have done was crack my egg in a separate container and then put it in there so I don't get shells in there. But what if that was a bad egg? Then my everything would have been ruined. So I should have, I know better, but I'm lazy sometimes. That's why I call myself the lazy inspirational chef. Put it in a separate container. All right, let me whip this together. 1 egg at a time. Okay, next egg. I'm going to do it the right way this time. Crack it in a separate container. You want room temperature eggs because even the cream cheese has been sitting out for a couple of hours. Even my sour cream has been sitting out for a little bit because I want it to be creamy and I don't want it to seize. I don't want the eggs to seize in the cold, okay? Cheesecake is one of the easiest things to make if you know a couple of pointers that I'm going to teach you today. I like to bake the crust separate, never bake the crust. I'm sure that most of you have baked the crust separate when you make cheesecakes. Okay, so let me add the rest of the ingredients, which calls for a pinch of salt. Remember, I'm lazy, but also remember my parents were off the boat Italian and we didn't have measuring spoons. I cooked with a knife, a fork, and a wooden spoon, literally. So when it comes to salt, I'm very used to guesstimating what the salt is based on how much salt is between my fingers. And you don't have to do that. That was maybe a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon. I don't know, but it's enough. I know that, but it's in the instructions exactly how much salt you need. What else is missing from here is some vanilla. I got this wonderful bourbon Madagascar Madagascar bourbon vanilla. Well worth the extra money that you pay for this versus the imitation. How long did your sour cream sit? Oh, about an hour. I took it out about an hour ago. The cream cheese about 2 hours ago, because I don't want to microwave my cream cheese. I want it to just be room temperature. So it was all room temperature. And the sour cream about maybe an hour ago, I took this out. I took the sour cream out and I put it in this, my cup. Now, again, the full recipe is 2 cups of sour cream. This recipe, since I halved it, is only 1 cup. So we're going to put 1 cup of sour cream. If you find a recipe that doesn't call for sour cream in your cheesecake, look for another one or use mine. I have made this cheesecake over and over and over again, and my family just loves it. And now I have 1 in the freezer. It was supposed to be 2, but my husband got into the other one. And so what I'm in the habit of, since I have too much food in this house, is giving as much of it away as possible. So he got into it and I took the rest of it and I gave it to a neighbor. I'm like, no, you cannot get into all of these. You can't be eating all of this stuff because my husband will eat the whole thing. Anyhow, what are we doing here? Mix all this together. Almost done, almost. That's it. Now it's ready to go into the shell. Okay, give me a second. Let me do this. And that. And the sour cream really makes this cheesecake. Let me turn my oven back on. 325. Actually, I'm going to do 300. Oh, stop it. I always get confused with some of these things. 300, since it's a smaller one, I'm going to do it for 40 minutes. And now it's just going to heat up. It went to 325. Why did you do that when I asked for 300? Electronics. Okay, sorry, I'm back. The oven is preheating, so I'm preheating the oven. And if you didn't, it's not a huge deal. There's my crust, the almond flour crust. By the way, I sprayed on the bottom of that some olive oil spray. I don't use Pam because it's a highly inflammatory oil, and it also has propellants in it, which are also inflammatory. So try some olive oil spray, avocado spray, and much, much, much healthier for you. Okay. So here we go. We're going to put our cheesecake right in here. And I will show you the cheesecake that I have in the freezer and how I froze it. Because when it comes to the holidays, first of all, I'm going to be in Florida. I'm going to be in Fort Lauderdale next week. And I'll be coming home the night before Thanksgiving. And I don't have time to cook. So I've been cooking in this house for Thanksgiving for the last 17 years. And this year I said, I'm not cooking. I'm not cooking. Can we go out to dinner? I've never been out to dinner on Thanksgiving. Has anyone ever been out to dinner for Thanksgiving? I tell you, I come from a traditional Italian family and we don't go out to the restaurants in the family. We always have family dinner. But my family is up in New Jersey. So normally I have my husband's family here at the house. And this year I'm like, I'm going to Florida. I'll be home right before Thanksgiving and you and I can have a nice Thanksgiving together. And yeah. So his sister calls and she lives about an hour and a half up in Culpeper. She's having Thanksgiving at her house. Lovely. So now we're going to go to Culpeper that day. And I'm going to bring some dishes because they will be frozen. They'll be in my freezer and I'll be able to take them out the night before and bring them the next day because I'm going to have zero time. I'll be home midnight Wednesday night. And then Thursday morning, we're leaving around 9 o'clock. I'm just going to take the stuff out of the freezer the night before and then take it the day of. And then this doesn't have to be cooked again because I'm already cooking it, right? And the butternut squash casserole is already cooked. It just needs to be reheated. So you'll see what I mean in just a few moments. Now, if you're going to do convection, even if you don't do convection, I realized that putting a piece of parchment paper on the top keeps the top from burning. Okay, I'm gonna put it in the oven. Typical time is 50 minutes at 325. Today I'm convection, and you see I put the parchment paper right on the top. I just kind of laid it on the top. It hasn't come to temperature yet, and when it does, it'll beep and then it'll start for 40 minutes. Again, I'm doing 40 because it's convection. 50 minutes is too much in this particular smaller oven. And I like to cook in my smaller oven because why turn the big oven on? Or maybe I have other things cooking over here. Now I have 2 ovens. When that is done, I'm not going to take it out. I'm going to open the door, put a wooden spoon in there and just keep it cracked and leave it in there for an hour. Leave it in there for an hour. Do not touch it. Do not touch the top, nothing. It should be a little jiggly in the middle when 40 minutes are up, which it might be done right before. I might be, oh, I don't want to take it out. It might ruin it. You don't want to crack the top. And if you do crack the top, don't worry. It'll be fine. You're going to put the topping on it anyway. Talking about the topping, let's get that rolling here. I'm going to get the topping rolling. The topping are full of cranberries. Okay, there's the beep. That means that the oven came to temperature. And I'm going to make a half a recipe here. Half a recipe. So it's a half a bag of cranberries. Did you know cranberries are amazing for your health? It's sad that they only come out one time of year. So I buy a bunch and I freeze them. So I have them. I throw them in smoothies. I make this cranberry dressing for desserts or cranberry sauce for Thanksgiving dinner. You can make it anytime. You can make this cranberry sauce. So what I have, of course, are cranberries. And let me bring all of the rest of this stuff over. I'm going to put some, you can do water, but why do water when you can do a little bit of orange juice? Okay. So isn't this an odd looking orange? I went to 3 stores and I couldn't find real orange. I mean, there's all, this is a real orange, but this is a juicing orange. So you can get a whole heck of a lot of juice out of it. So I'm going to probably put about 1/4 cup of juice because remember, I'm halving the recipe. And if you put a little bit more, it's fine. It's fine. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. Not huge into measuring. I'm going to put a little bit of lemon juice in there. And I'm not telling you not to measure. You've got the measurements in the recipes, okay? Oh, you come from an Italian family as well. Is that Natasha? Oh, good. So you must be able to pronounce prosciutto no problem, right? You can probably pronounce prosciutto in your sleep. All right, I'm going to do a little bit of orange rind. Orange rind just really gives a pop of orange flavor to the topping for the cheesecake. Okay, here we go. Just a little bit, that works. Now, if you don't want to do orange rind, or you can do this as well, this is an orange extract. I'm just going to put maybe 1/2 teaspoon in there. Just a little bit of an orange extract. Super simple. I'm going to put this right on the stovetop. And Caitlin, remind me to stir it in about 5 minutes, okay? Put that on low, and I'll stir that in about 5 minutes, okay? Okay. Any questions so far on the cheesecake? And I promise you, I'll show you how I froze it to keep it nice and fresh at the end, okay? You always put 10 extra bags of cranberries and toss them in the freezer, cranberry sauce all year. Oh yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Buy a bunch and throw them in the freezer. I do a television show for a local cable channel, and we film the shows months in advance, and I needed cranberries for my turkey and stuffing meatloaf that I was making. I couldn't find them anywhere, and I ran out. I ran out because it was August, and I called my friend. She said, I have a couple bags. I'll be right there. So thank goodness that she had them. But cranberries are really good for you, not just for urinary tract infections. They're full of vitamin C. They're full of other things called proanthocyanidins, which fight free radicals, boosts your immune system. Phenomenal. Cranberries, eat them, eat them, eat them. What did I promise we're going to do next? All right. Any questions on cheesecake? Let me know. Put it in the chat box if you have any questions on the cheesecake so far. Lots of you here with me today. Lots of you. It's good. It's good. Okay, my next fun dish is the green beans, I always grew up calling them string beans, but in America, I think we call them green beans, but I never called them green beans. What do you call them? String beans, green beans? It's a tradition to make this green bean casserole. Who makes the green bean casserole with the cream of mushroom soup and the green beans and the canned green beans and fried onions? God knows what is on those fried onions. God knows what's on them. I never grew up with that. We always had fresh green beans. We always had just fresh green beans. My dad would trim the ends and my mom would steam them up or boil them up. And that's it. We never did this casserole thing until I got married. And I'm like, what is this? And it's this green bean casserole. You posted the recipes. I made, green bean. So you call it green beans. I call them string beans. Isn't that crazy? Anyhow, these are French green beans. These are French green beans. And I'm using them for this recipe because they're thinner and they work better for this prosciutto wrapped green beans. Okay. So you see how thin they are. And I'm going to get some prosciutto. And you're like, prosciutto, is that really healthy? Well, you know, if you get the one that's all natural, that doesn't have any preservatives, it's fine to have it every once in a while. And it's not like you're going to eat 20 pieces. You're going to eat one piece wrapped in green beans. Okay. I think the hot gas is on too high over here. So let me just turn that down. And so I love prosciutto. I grew up on prosciutto going to Italy. My parents, again, off the boat, you know, and my dad would, even as we were babies, all four of us, he would take us to Italy during the summers. And one year I went with my grandmom and not my parents. And I think I had the most fun then. No, I'm teasing. I came back 20 pounds heavier. I actually decided to eat. And anyhow, always had prosciutto. All of my aunts, uncles have a big leg of prosciutto in the back room that they slice right off of. Do you know that it takes a good year to cure this meat? A good year. It's a huge process. My grandpa, of course, he raised hogs and he always had prosciutto hanging. Always had a prosciutto hanging. So I grew up eating this and I like the thinner slice, the better. Who has had prosciutto and likes it? Yeah, were the recipes posted? The recipes were posted. I'm not sure exactly where. Who is anyone on here that knows exactly where those recipes were posted? I'm not sure where they're posted, but they have been given. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, fine. I don't believe I'm counting. It's about 10 string beans that you're going to wrap up in a little bit of that prosciutto. So I was watching my grandpa makes prosciutto, or made prosciutto when he was alive. And so I watched a YouTube video. I'm like, I really want to know how you make this. Well, they salt the leg first. They salt it and leave it in a box in salt, packed in salt for about a couple of weeks, depending on how many pounds it is. And then they take it out, they wash it, and then they dry it, and then they pack it with lard and pepper or whatever other spices you want to put on there. And then they hang it for a whole year. Interesting. There's a picture that I still have of my grandpa in Italy with his prosciutto behind him. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah, your 5-minute timer is going off.
Thank you. I have prosciutto on my hand, so I don't want to touch that too much. So I just touched it with the back of my hand or the middle of my hand that doesn't have prosciutto on it. Yeah, you know, if you touch meat, always wash your hands before you touch anything else, okay? You know, it's funny. Most of us are sitting there going, we know this, right? But there's some people that don't really know that. You will transfer bacteria to whatever else it is that you touch, which is why I grabbed that handle with the middle of my hands that didn't have prosciutto on it. Okay. And as soon as I'm done with wrapping up my green beans, I'm going to go and wash my hands. This makes a lovely, lovely, lovely dish. And it's just something different than either steamed string beans or the green bean casserole. And what we're going to do is we're going to put freshly ground black pepper on the top and roast it at 425. The oven is ready for about maybe 10 minutes. When it comes out, we're going to put a little balsamic glaze on them, and then you'll serve them. They're best served hot, just so you know, they're best served hot. And I made these last week, so I had a couple in the refrigerator. They're good right out of the fridge. They're just good. Okay, but best served hot. Okay, how many of these are we going to make? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's have an even number. Let's do one more. And you know what? Make as many as you want, however many people you have coming over or however many you want for dinner that night. Here we go. I'll tell you though, I think the prosciutto in Italy is always better than the one that you get here in America. And anybody here from Spain, anyone from Spain will tell you that the jamon is much better than prosciutto. And I'm like, what's the difference? It's all prosciutto, jamon, prosciutto, it's all the same stuff, but they insist that theirs is much better than the Italian prosciutto. I don't know if the curing process is different. I have no clue, but I should research that. Okay, here we go. I'm going to just leave that and I'll put that in a plastic bag and serve that as an appetizer. I'll roll them up on Thanksgiving Day. And before I put these in the oven, I need to put pepper on them, but I need to wash my hands. So I'll be right back. One of my slogans is life is messy, wash your hands. I'll watch cooking shows and I watch to make sure that they washed their hands. And sometimes they don't. Yeah. Not my favorite thing to watch when they don't wash their hands. I stirred it again, so I needed just a 3-minute timer on that, Caitlin. And the cranberries, you know they're done when they all pop. Freshly ground black pepper. Do not salt these. If you salt them, you will be in trouble because prosciutto is already salty. Prosciutto is already salty. All right. Anybody else want to take a crack at saying prosciutto? Anybody else want to take a crack at saying prosciutto? See if you can roll your tongue and take yourself off of mute for just a second. And go ahead and say prosciutto.
Prosciutto.
Yes. Anybody else? Take a crack at it. That was good. A little olive oil in the oven, 10 minutes. Okay, Google, 10-minute timer. Love my Google Home. Who here has a Google Home? But GH in the chat. I love my Google Home. All right. Yeah. Anybody else take a crack at prosciutto? Anybody else? I'm just going to put this in the fridge so it doesn't sit out for too much longer. Okay. So, oh, did I forget? No, that's it. When it comes out, we're going to put some glaze on top of it, right? We're going to put some glaze. Any questions about that so far? Any questions? I'm going to show you my cranberry topping, what it looks like so far. Okay. You see how some of them are starting to pop? I'm going to put the heat a little bit lower and I'm just going to continue. Oh, you know what I forgot to put in here? I knew there was something I forgot to put in here is a little bit of sweetener. You can use maple syrup for your sweetener. You can use honey. You can use something called Yacon syrup. Yacon syrup is from a root vegetable and it's about 1/3 of the calories of honey and it still gives that thick consistency. As a matter of fact, I think, or you can use monk fruit. I've used monk fruit, no problem, but I think I want to use some of the Yacon syrup here. So let's do that. Put a little Yacon syrup. Has anyone ever heard of Yacon syrup? 1/3 of the calories of honey and it still gives, see how that nice thick consistency of honey, and it has sweetness. It is sweet. It is sweet. It's wonderful. It's a little on the expensive side, but I don't use it all that often. And I really, really like to teach people different ways that they can get sweetness in their life without compromising their health, Yeah. And you're like, well, what's the matter with honey, right? Does anybody know, like, is anyone questioning that? Like, what's the matter with honey? Why do we have to use Yacon syrup or monk fruit or something like that? And I will explain. When we eat foods that raise our blood glucose levels too high, then our pancreas has to excrete insulin. And insulin takes the glucose out of the bloodstream because it's dangerous for the brain. So it's important that the pancreas does its job, excretes insulin, and the insulin takes that glucose, I call it the cafe, which is the muscle. And so it wants to feed the muscle, but if it's too much and the muscle is not exercising and doesn't need all of that glucose, it goes right into fat storage. Now, mind you, there's a lot of scientific stuff that happens. It goes through the liver and all this other fun stuff. I'm not going to go into that. The most dangerous part about insulin, not only is it taking sugar into fat storage that we don't need any extra fat cells, most of us, I know I don't. It also causes lesions in your arteries, causing your liver to create more LDL cholesterol. Okay, does that make sense? More insulin equals more LDL. Okay, so the less amount of sugar that you eat, the better off you are. Does that make sense to everybody? If that makes sense, put a 1 in the chat if that makes sense to everybody. Put a 1 in the chat if that makes sense to everybody. Go ahead and put a 1 in the chat if that makes sense to everybody. I want to make sure that you're all with me and that you are alive and well. Okay. So I wanted to teach you. That's why I like to teach you about monk fruit. I don't like to bake with stevia, but I will bake with erythritol. I don't have any erythritol here, but there's a brand that I'll bake with called Swerve. And that's erythritol, which is a sugar alcohol made from fermented vegetables. Some people can't handle it and some people can. Okay, everyone is different. And it doesn't elevate your blood glucose levels. And that's what we're looking for here. And especially as we get older, our bodies get less and less and less tolerant to insulin, less and less tolerant to insulin. And this is coming along nice. I'm going to let this cook for another 3 minutes. Can you see how that's, some of the cranberries haven't popped yet, and I want them to pop. So maybe another 3 minutes. We'll check that 3-minute timer, please, Caitlin, just reset. All right, next, we're going to make this butternut squash twice baked casserole with pecan crunch. Lots of fun. I had to bake this ahead of time because it takes 50 minutes for this to have baked. Actually, this took about 60 minutes because I wanted to get it a little bit more caramelized. But I will show you how to cut up a butternut squash. Who wants to know how to cut up a butternut squash? Put butternut in the chat if you want to learn how to cut up a butternut squash. If you want to learn how to cut up a butternut squash, put butternut in the chat box, put butternut in the chat box, put butternut in the chat box. All right, I got at least one person, 2 people that want to learn how to cut up a butternut squash. This is what a butternut squash looks like in the reel. And I wanted to show you a couple other squashes that you can use in this recipe. This is a honey nut squash that is, holy cowza, so delicious. It literally tastes like honey. To bake this, I won't use this in this casserole because what I'll use this, I'll poke holes in it. I washed it already. I'll poke holes in it and I'll throw it in the oven at 350 for about 30 minutes. And then I'll cut it open, take the seeds out and just scoop it out, scoop the flesh out and eat it with a spoon. Delicious. This is like honey. Does anybody know what this is? Anybody know what kind of squash this one is? Anybody? 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 I'll hold it still so you can see it. And it looks the same as the name. Anybody? Acorn squash. This is called an acorn squash. You can actually eat the skin on the acorn squash. I would cut it really thin and slice it and roast it with a little salt and pepper and acorn squash. Or if you're going to use it for this recipe, I won't peel it like I'm doing this one. It's too difficult. Again, I'll cut it in half, skin side up, take the seeds out, rub a little bit of olive oil on it and roast it for about 50 minutes at 375 probably, and then scoop out the flesh and use it in this recipe. Okay, that's that one. Does anybody know what this kind of squash is called? Anybody know what this kind of squash, what this one is called? Oh, great for stuffing. Oh, see, I'm not the, oh, you stuff the acorn squash. Oh, good idea. What do you stuff it with? What do you stuff it with? Dina, what do you stuff it with? Great idea. Acorn squash stuffed with apples and sausage. Oh, I have a friend of my husband's, it's actually his boss, that raises hogs, and we get the butchered meat in the beginning of December. So I get sausage. So I'm going to make that acorn squash stuffed with sausage and apples. Great idea. This is a delicata squash. Again, another one of my favorites. You absolutely can eat the skin of this one. I actually like the skin better of this one than the acorn. And I'll get my mandolin and slice it thin, put it on that roasting sheet, salt, pepper, a little olive oil, and roast it, and Parmesan cheese. Sprinkle some Parmesan cheese. This is amazing. Okay. I promised
Your
to.
timer's going off as well.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yep, this is done. This is done. I'm going to turn that off. What you'll see is the topping has thickened up. It'll thicken up a little bit more while it's in this pan, okay? But I don't need the heat on it anymore. Some of the cranberries are still a little whole. They'll be wonderful. They'll be wonderful. They'll pop in your mouth. And we will put this on the cheesecake when you are ready to serve it. You can store this in the fridge. You can store this in the freezer. It will be as great from the freezer, but it'll work. But do not freeze your cheesecake with the topping on it. It can work, but it's better if you just put the top or make the topping right before you're going to serve it. Okay. Because what did this take me? 15 minutes to make. And those other cranberries that look whole, they're smashable. I can smash them so they're soft. And some people don't like topping on their cheesecake. So I don't even put it on the cheesecake, but if you're trying to present, I would definitely present and then put sprigs of rosemary. So pretty, so pretty. Okay, so there we have it. I promised you, what did I promise you? I promised you to cut open a butternut squash for you. I like this particular peeler better than the one that you'll hold this way. Okay, so just hold it and peel it. Now I washed this ahead of time. Always wash it because whatever pesticides might be on the skin or dirt or bacteria on the skin, as you're slicing, could get on your hands, it could get into the flesh. So I always wash it ahead of time. Just give it a quick rinse, no big deal. But if you do wash it, make sure you dry it before you store it. So my grandma would always say, si lava cuando se usa, which means you wash it right before you're going to use it. So pre-washed vegetables, not good because it can introduce bacteria, mold, and everything else. So don't wash your vegetables unless you're about to use them. And if you do wash your vegetables, make sure you dry them thoroughly. Dry them thoroughly. Okay, here we go. Here we go. What was that for? Oh, that's for the string beans. See, I call them string beans, not green beans. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? I'm going to check them real quick. Okay, Google, stop. Okay, Google, 3-minute timer. I'm going to let it cook another 3 minutes. It's not crispy enough for me. So we're going to crisp that up. Okay, let's finish this up. I bought my third Subaru from my Subaru dealer, and yeah, I love my Subaru Outbacks. Who loves Subarus? I love Subarus. I know, cooking class, we're talking about cars. Love my Subaru. And he gave me as a gift my Google Home, which I absolutely love, absolutely love. Okay, we got the peel off, and I want you to remember, round things we need to make flat, okay? Round things we need to make flat. And this is not flat yet, so we're gonna make it flat, and this is how we're gonna do it. You grew up in South Jersey and we call them string beans too. It's a Jersey thing. Thank you. I didn't realize it's a Jersey thing. All right, who wants to learn a little bit about how to hold a knife? If you want to learn a little bit about how to hold a knife, put knife in the chat. If you want to learn how to hold a knife, put knife in the chat. Let me say it, put knife in the chat, and then we're going to check those string beans, okay? Knife. Okay, one person. If one person wants to learn, I'm teaching, okay? A lot of people like to hold a knife like so, with their finger on the top. Don't do that. Or they'll hold it like so, with no finger anywhere on the blade, okay? And that knife can easily roll out of your hand. I want this index finger on the side of the blade, this thumb on the other side of the blade, and 3 fingers gripping the handle. Now you see, as I move it, it will not slip out of my hand. So first, always hold the knife properly. Your other hand, your fingers are either like so, if it's on top together, or they're gripped like so. So right now I need to hold this still. So I'm going to grip it like so, never like so. Do you understand the difference here? Easy to chop your fingers. So always grip your finger, claw, think claw, okay? Grip like so, claw with the other hand. I'm going to cut this in half. Use the whole knife. I had my niece over helping me for one of my cooking shows, and she was prepping all of the food in the other room. And as I'm doing the show, I hear her prepping, and I kept hearing that. I'm like, oh, my poor knife. You want to have a sharp knife. So get your knives sharpened at least once a year, if not twice a year, and use wooden cutting boards. It will not dull the knife, okay? And never chop straight down unless you absolutely have to. Use the whole knife. So if you hear that noise, you're not using the whole knife, okay? Now, round things make flat. Round things make flat. So again, I'm gonna grip my fingers and I'm gonna place the blade right where it needs to go. The other hand goes on top, use some muscles. I'm on my tippy toes. And press straight down. You see how the fingers got out of the way? I have sliced my fingers enough times in my life. I refuse to slice fingers any longer. All right, so I learned some really good knife skills. I think that the string beans need to come out of the oven though. Let's check those real quick. See, call them string beans as opposed to green beans. Okay, Google, 2-minute timer. I don't think the other timer was on, but I wanted to cook a couple more minutes. I wanted to get nice and crispy up at the top. Okay, gonna grip your knife and I'm going to hand on top, score it up. You see, even here, I'm using the whole knife. I'm not going straight down. Use the whole knife. Use the whole knife. Now that's too much probably. I should probably just do one of these at a time, but that's okay. If I can use both of them, that'll work. One more thing, never use your knife to scoop up your vegetables. A, you can cut yourself. B, you'll dull your knife, okay? I even hand wash my knives. I don't let them go in the dishwasher because it will clank up against other things, and I prefer to hand wash my good knives, okay? So here we go again, round things, make them flat. I have a grapefruit spoon. You could use whatever spoon you want, but I'm going to use a grapefruit spoon to take the seeds out. If you want, you could separate the seeds from that flesh and roast them, and they're delicious. They make a nice little snack instead of popcorn. Not that popcorn's terrible, but they're make a nice little snack. They're delicious. So just roast them with a little olive oil, a little bit of sea salt. Okay. Again, flat side, not the rolly side, okay? Flat side down. You guys having fun? If you're having fun, put fun in the chat. If you're having fun, put fun in the chat. I want to see if you guys are still with me. I can't see your beautiful faces. So I want to know if you're having fun, put fun in the chat. If you're having fun, put fun in that chat box. Good. Fabulously. Absolutely, I see. Okay. I can't see any longer, can I? Oh, my Lord. Fun. All right. Good. Good. It felt a little silent out there. For a moment, felt a little silent out there. All right. Do you all feel equipped? Okay, Google, stop. Do you all feel equipped to cut open a butternut squash? Do you all feel equipped to cut a butternut squash? Yes? Yes or no? Yes or no? Do you feel equipped to cut a butternut squash? Anybody? Yes? Okay. So that's how we cut open our butternut squash. Now let's make this dish. Let's make the dish, okay? I'm gonna get my food processor. And so what I did is I got carrots. I chopped up carrots about the same size as I chopped up the butternut squash. Look, you can do all butternut squash, but I like the carrots in this dish because it makes it a little more heartier, thicker. Butternut squash can be a little watery, which I love butternut squash, don't get me wrong, but the carrots for this particular dish makes it a little, yeah, heartier is the best word. Now, I use a stone to bake with. I love stoneware. I feel like a cave woman, although I love the convenience of our times. And with my stoneware, I never really have to stir things around. But you can if you want. But I want you to note, you see how when you bake your butternut squash and your carrots this way, chopped up, versus, you know, just cutting it in half and steaming it. You get that caramelization and you get that flavor that you really want in this dish, okay? You get that wonderful flavor that you do want in this dish. I'm going to transfer it all to a food processor. You can do a blender too if you'd rather a blender. Here we go. Carrots are wonderful. I went to a nursery near my niece's house near York, and I bought these beautiful carrots. They were fat and they were just delicious, absolutely delicious, farm fresh carrots. And I ran out, so I had to buy the organic carrots that I always buy from the market, and they just weren't as good as those farm fresh carrots. So if you can ever get yourself to a farmer's market and get fresh food, do it as much as possible. Who here likes to go to farmer's markets? Put farmer's market in the chat. Farmer's market in the chat if you like to go to farmer's markets. Okay. Yeah, me, I got a me in there. So now we're going to put a little bit of pumpkin pie spice. This is pumpkin pie spice that I made up myself. I don't buy it pre-mixed because I always buy the spices in bulk, and then I just mix them up, the right spices. So pumpkin pie spice, we're going to do a little bit of, you can either do maple syrup in this dish or maple extract, okay? Maple extract or maple syrup. This particular dish I'm going to give to my sister. So she asked, well, we're going to do Thanksgiving on Friday, and I'm going to freeze this. And she asked me not to use the maple syrup. So, I mean, the maple extract, I don't know why. She has the funkiest taste buds on this planet Earth. So I'm going to use some pure maple syrup, which you should use too. Or you can use the monk fruit, or you can use the swerve that comes in brown sugar, the erythritol I was talking about. And I'm only going to put in 1/8 of a cup. I am making a half a recipe right now too. I'm making a half a recipe because, quite honestly, I end up with way too much food in this house, so I'm just making a half a recipe. But you can make a whole recipe, which I already have in my freezer, a whole recipe. This is coconut milk. I had to open up a can to use some for a recipe. Never store it in the can. Always decant it and put it into another container. And so I'm going to put about 1/4 cup of some coconut milk in there. I'm going to put I'm going to put a pinch of sea salt in there too. Just a pinch of sea salt. It helps to pop the flavor. I want to make sure I have everything. Coconut milk, maple syrup, pumpkin pie spice. Yep. So I've got everything. I'm going to puree and I'll be right back. It's almost ready, almost. And I'm going to make the topping right now. I'm going to get some pecans in the bag. I'm lazy. What can I say? Some pecans. Ah, I'm looking for the sunflower seeds and they're right here. Some sunflower seeds. About 1/4 cup sunflower seeds. I'm gonna put a pinch of salt. That's not in the recipe. I'm telling you now to do it now. That looks done. And then I'm gonna get some shredded coconut, okay? Coconut is antiviral, antibacterial, antimicrobial, so good for you. It's already sweet, so you don't need to add any sweetener to this topping because the coconut is sweet unto itself. Add as much as you want. I'm gonna put about 3/4, about 1/2 cup in there, maybe a little bit less. maybe a little bit more. Just kind of feel it out or just follow my recipe, okay? Now in this topping, I can add a little bit more pumpkin pie spice if I want. And you don't have to, but you can. It's not in the recipe and you can do that. Put a little bit more pumpkin pie spice, or if you want just cinnamon, just put some cinnamon on the top here, okay? That's the topping. This is nice and well blended. Actually, I'm gonna blend it for a few more moments. Give me a second. I believe I ran out of small little spatulas. Here we go. Okay. And this is typical. You want to push down the food and blend it again. I'm just going to do a couple more seconds here. Even if it's not thoroughly blended, don't you worry about it. It'll be fine. You can use a food processor. You can use a blender, whichever you want. If I had a huge batch, you would have to do it in batches in the blender. And it'll be easier to do it in batches in the food processor as well. Okay, here we go. And that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. Now, this is going to get baked again in the oven before you serve it. Don't bake it now if you're not going to eat it now. Okay, and that's the beauty of this particular recipe, is that you can freeze this. You can keep it in the fridge for up to 5 days. So if you want to make it 5 days in advance, I would do 3 days in advance if you're not going to freeze it. But otherwise, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the topping on here and I will wrap it with plastic wrap and then wrap it with tin foil. And then on the top of that, I will write exactly what's in there. Squash casserole, pecan crunch, 350 degrees, 10 minutes. You want to remove it from the freezer the night before and defrost it in the refrigerator. And then the next day, put it in the oven for 10, 15 minutes. You just want to basically heat it up 350 degrees, okay? 350 degrees. And I promised you to show you the cheesecake. I'm going to go get it out of the freezer in just a second. My mom makes this sweet potato casserole, and it's just, I find it disgusting. She slices up beautiful sweet potatoes and then puts loads of brown sugar and butter all over them. And they are sinfully sweet, and she's diabetic and she still makes them. I can't eat them because diabetes is hereditary. However, it can be prevented by stop eating things like sweet potatoes loaded with brown sugar. Okay, so there we have it. Oh, look how beautiful! It's so pretty. It's so pretty. And trust me, the caramelized flavor is going to pop with this. It's going to pop with this. It's going to show through. And my sister's a super taster. So here we go. We're going to put our crunch topping on the top. It might actually be a little bit too much, so I'm just not going to put it all on there. There we go. Well, maybe I will. Whatever. There we go. Oh, that's going to be delicious. Why not? Just put the whole thing in there. Don't you agree? Just put the whole thing, put a whole bunch of, so I was supposed to half the recipe for the topping, and I don't think I did. It's all good. But you know, that's the beauty of being me. I'm inspirational. I'm lazy. I can do whatever I want. Before you freeze this, you definitely want to clean up the sides before you bake it. Otherwise, that will be heck to clean later on. All right. So for the most part, this is cooked. You just need to freeze it or cook it right now for 10 minutes and then eat it up. Yum. How delicious. So there we have it. Home cooking is never lazy. Oh, thank you, Dina. Looks so good. You must make this. All right. Oh, and I wanted to show you, here's the string beans with the prosciutto and the balsamic glaze. Isn't that pretty? Isn't that just beautiful to serve that as an appetizer for your family, as opposed to, you know, people eating a lot of fried foods or whatever else you might have. Look how beautiful that is. Knife and a fork. Actually, I can just pick this up and eat it. Oh, so good. Now, I promised you that I'm going to go and get the cheesecake out of the freezer. I'm going to show you how I froze it. And while I'm going to go do that, because you only have a few minutes, right? It's in the freezer outside. I want you to type, first of all, Caitlin is going to put in the chat box 2 things. Number 1, she's going to give you the link to my cooking show on YouTube. So please subscribe to my cooking show. Please, please, please. I'd love for you to subscribe to my cooking show. The second link Caitlin is going to put in there is the link to my Joyful Gut Reboot Guide, which is a guide that I wrote that's all about how to live a life that's full of joy in the kitchen and in your how to have a joyful gut, right? And if you look deeply into that book, you will find a link that will give you the application for a weight loss coaching session with me. So you got to look for it. You got to look for it. Now, while I go get that cheesecake out of the freezer, I would love for you to please, please, please type in that chat box. What have you found most valuable about our time together today? Tell me, what have you found most valuable about our time together today? I'll be right back. All right, let's see. Using knife properly, different squash names and tips on what to make with them. Thank you, Karen. Never thought to add carrots to my squash. I'm going to make, oh yeah, the carrots add a special sweetness to it as well. So I went to the store. You can get it maybe at Target. I found this at Walmart, a party store. These cardboard rings, okay? Because you want to slip, first of all, did you hear that? My cheesecake is done, okay? It's done. Let's go and check it real quick, and then I'll show you more on this. Hold on. Where's the pot holders? Now, technically, I'm not supposed to take it out of the oven, but I want you to see this. Oh, it looks beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I get so excited. I get so excited. Look how beautiful that is. You see how it's still a little jiggly? That's a lot jiggly. I'm going to let it cook for 5 more minutes, and then I'm going to leave it in the oven because the center should be jiggly, not the whole thing. You see how the whole thing is jiggly? I'm going to 5 more minutes, and then I'm going to leave it in the oven with the spoon propping the door open for an hour. And then I'm going to cool it off on the countertop for an hour or 2. And then I'll put it in the refrigerator. Then I'll put it in the refrigerator for a couple of hours. And then I'll take it out of the refrigerator. Hopefully my husband doesn't get to it. And I will wrap it, put it on the cardboard. And listen, I will put it right in the refrigerator, right in its container, right in its container. Don't take it out from the oven, 1 hour in the oven, onto the countertop, another couple of hours, in the refrigerator, a couple of hours, out of the refrigerator, wrap it in plastic, And these boxes, again, I found these at Walmart. Put it in the box. You don't have to, you don't need the box, but I'm traveling to Culpeper and I want it to be easy to transport without wrecking it. The topping, I'm telling you, going right in the freezer, and I will bring this with the topping separate that I take out of the freezer the night before, So there we have it, everyone. Yeah, so you thought we were speaking Spanish or Italian. Yes, never knew delicata was the name of a squash. Yes, delicata, that's funny. Monk as a sweetener versus sugar, good. Healthy alternatives to an otherwise overly rich meal. Yes, exactly. I just want to say thank you for all your interaction. Thank you for being present with me today and having fun and finding joy in the kitchen with me. And I hope to goodness that you bring this joy with you to your Thanksgiving table and give thanks to everything that's there. And it's not just about the food, it's about the people. And it's about loving one another. So thank you. I am so appreciative of each and every one of you. And until next time, namaste. Bye for now, everyone. Have an amazing day. And remember, join me on my YouTube channel. It's tinamcdermott.com/cooking show.